Something happened the last time you walked out to fill your feeder. You opened the back door, you stepped onto the porch, and before you were halfway down the steps, the yard changed. The chickadees at the sunflower feeder went still. The sparrows on the ground lifted. The whole population of birds you had been watching through the window reassembled itself somewhere farther from you, somewhere you were not. You did not shout. You did not move fast. You were just there, a familiar person in a yard you have walked through hundreds of times. And still, something in the way you arrived told every bird in that yard that you had arrived. What they detected is not what you think. Most people assume birds react to motion, the visual fact of a large body moving through their space. And motion matters, yes. But the moment those birds responded was not the moment they saw you. It was earlier than that. It was the moment they heard you, not the sound of your footsteps specifically. Something underneath that, something in the frequency of your approach that registers below the range of anything you consciously detect, and yet broadcasts your presence across the entire yard in a signal every bird there is trained by evolution to read instantly. Your birds are not living in the same sensory world you are. They are living in a version of it that is deeper, wider, and in certain directions more precise than anything human perception can access. What they hear, what they see, what they feel is a different reality, running alongside yours, occupying the same yard, responding to the same events, and registering information you are entirely unaware of. Welcome to Bird Instinct. Subscribe before you leave, because what you are about to understand is running in your yard right now, in the quiet between the sounds you notice. And once you see the full shape of it, you will never walk out that back door the same way again. Stay until the end, because the last thing we cover is the most personal, and researchers at the University of Vienna spent 2 years documenting it. Chapter 1. The alarm network you did not know your yard was broadcasting. Every yard that holds birds is holding a conversation you cannot hear most of. The black-capped chickadee has one of the most studied vocal systems in North American ornithology. Researchers at the University of Washington spent 11 years mapping it. What they found is not a collection of generic alarm sounds. It is a functional communication system with syntax, with gradations of urgency, with species-specific threat information embedded in a single call. When a chickadee detects a predator, it produces a specific number of high-pitched D notes appended to the end of its standard chickadee call. A large, slow-moving hawk receives 2 or 3 D notes. A small, fast hawk, the kind that maneuvers through foliage and takes birds mid-air, receives 7, 8, sometimes 12 D notes. Every bird within hearing range decodes the threat level immediately. Not just chickadees. Nuthatches, titmice, downy woodpeckers, all the species sharing your yard read chickadee alarm calls in real time. The system is cross-species. Your yard is running a continuous threat broadcast every minute of every day. Here is what makes this personal. When you walk into the yard, you are entering the broadcast zone. The chickadee on the feeder has been tracking the acoustic signature of your approach since before you open the door. By the time you are visible, the information has already traveled to every bird in the space. What you see as birds noticing you is the end of a process that began earlier and quieter than you realized. Chapter 2. The storm your birds felt before the radar did. In April 2014, a research team at the University of Minnesota attached GPS tracking devices to golden-winged warblers in the Cumberland Mountains of Tennessee. The birds had just arrived from Central America. Migration was underway. One day before a major tornado system made landfall, before the storm was within detectable range of ground-level weather instruments, the warblers left. All of them. They flew south 500 miles in 2 days, directly away from the approaching storm path. When the system passed, they flew back north and resumed migration. The study published in Current Biology identified the mechanism. The birds had detected the approaching system through infrasound. The low-frequency rumble generated by colliding air masses in a severe storm travels hundreds of miles ahead of the storm itself. The frequency range is below 20 Hz, which is the lower threshold of human hearing. The birds heard it clearly. They were reading acoustic information from a weather event that was still hundreds of miles away, and they responded 24 hours before human instruments at ground level could measure it. Now think about the birds in your yard. Before the last major storm came through your region, there was a moment, likely 12 to 24 hours before your weather app updated, when your yard went quiet. Feeders that are normally busy slowed down. Species you expect every morning were not where you expected them. That was not randomness. That was infrasound detection. Your birds were reading a signal from the atmosphere that you did not have the equipment to perceive, and they were already making decisions based on it. Chapter 3. The color that exists on your birds that you have never seen. A male American goldfinch in breeding plumage is, to human eyes, one of the most vividly colored birds in the backyard. Bright sulfur yellow, black wings, a precise black cap. That is what you see. The goldfinch sees something different when it looks at another goldfinch. Birds have 4 types of color receptors in their eyes. Humans have 3. The 4th type in birds is sensitive to ultraviolet light, in the frequency range of 300 to 400 nanometers, which is above what human eyes can detect. Many bird species also have oil droplets in their retinal cells that further sharpen color discrimination in ways that have no human equivalent. What this means in practice is that the plumage you see is not the plumage birds see. The yellow of a male goldfinch reflects ultraviolet light at frequencies that are invisible to you but vivid to another goldfinch. Studies at Uppsala University in Sweden documented that female birds use ultraviolet plumage patterns to evaluate male quality in ways that bear no relationship to what human observers judge as most colorful. The most attractive male goldfinch to a female goldfinch is not necessarily the one that looks brightest to you. Your yard to a bird is lit by a spectrum you cannot see. The birds moving through it are reading signals in that spectrum from each other, from flowers, from insects, from water surfaces. They are navigating a layer of visual information that runs parallel to everything you observe, invisible to you, completely present to them. The bird you are watching through the window and the bird your other birds are watching are not quite the same bird. Chapter 4. The compass they carry that you cannot feel. In the 1970s, researchers at Cornell University began investigating how birds navigate across continents during migration. Stellar navigation was established, birds orienting by star positions at night. Correct, but incomplete. Birds also navigate by magnetoreception. They carry iron-based magnetite particles in cells near the beak and in the inner ear that function as a biological compass. These particles respond to the Earth's magnetic field and provide continuous positional information in daylight, in darkness, in overcast conditions when stars are not visible. Research from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology documented that European robins can detect changes in the geomagnetic field of less than 50 nanoteslas. The total geomagnetic field at the Earth's surface is between 25,000 and 65,000 nanoteslas. The birds are resolving variations at a fraction of 1% of total field strength. The sensitivity is not approximate. It is extraordinary. The ruby-throated hummingbird that arrives at your feeder in May crossed the Gulf of Mexico the night before. 900 miles of open water, in darkness, with no landmarks, navigating by a system that tells it not just which direction is north, but approximately where on the planet it is. This information is available to it continuously, the way a GPS signal is available to a phone, except it has been functioning in birds for 50 million years and does not require a satellite. Your hummingbird is not a small, delicate bird that found its way here by luck. It is a precision navigation instrument wearing feathers. Chapter 5. What your birds hear when they hear you. This is the part that changes the relationship. In 2019, researchers at the University of Vienna conducted studies on the acoustic response of wild birds to familiar and unfamiliar human voices. The results were specific. Birds that had regular interaction with the same humans over months developed what the researchers called an acoustic representation of that person. Their neural response to a familiar voice differed measurably from their response to a stranger's voice, not only in threat assessment, but in attention level, proximity tolerance, and feeding behavior. The chickadee that has heard your voice every morning for 2 years is not just less frightened of you than of a stranger. It has learned you acoustically. It has a representation of your voice stored in its auditory memory that it retrieves and evaluates each time you speak. A related study from the University of Queensland measured the cortisol stress response in wild birds approached by researchers they had heard repeatedly versus researchers they had not. The familiar voice did not just reduce flight distance, it reduced the physiological stress response. Blood markers of stress dropped measurably. The birds were not merely tolerating the familiar person. They were, in a functional sense, calmer around them at the level of blood chemistry. What this means for you is this. The birds that come to your feeders regularly are not treating you as a feature of the landscape, the way they treat the fence post or the bird bath. They are treating you as a specific entity they know. They have been filing your voice, your step, the sound of your door, the particular rhythm of the way you move through the yard. They have been building that file for months, possibly years, without you realizing it was being built. Every morning you stepped outside and spoke quietly to the yard. Every morning you refilled the feeder and said nothing at all. Your birds were adding to the record. What you can do. If you want to deepen that acoustic relationship, speak in a consistent low tone when you approach feeders. Not loudly, not a whistle or a call designed for birds, just a quiet, ordinary voice in the same register each time. Consistency over time is what creates an acoustic signature, the birds file as safe. The Vienna research team observed that birds exposed to the same voice for 60 days showed proximity tolerance roughly 3 times greater than control groups exposed to random, unfamiliar voices. Keep your yard as acoustically consistent as possible. Research on infrasound sensitivity shows that birds in yards with high acoustic disruption, irregular machinery noise, unpredictable loud activity, maintain higher cortisol baselines, and feed less efficiently. The quieter and more predictable the acoustic environment, the more clearly your birds can read the signal they are actually listening for, which is you, familiar, safe, expected. The feeder you fill every morning, the door that opens the same way, the quiet, particular sound of your voice saying nothing important while you work in the yard. All of it is being heard. All of it is being filed. Your birds are not just living in your yard. They are listening to you in ways that reach into their nervous systems. And they have been doing it since the first morning you stepped outside and they were there. You thought you were watching them. They were also building a record of you. The yard you think of as yours is also their record of you. The invisible file they keep on the human who comes out the back door every morning, carrying food, speaking quietly, standing at the feeder in all weather, year after year. They know the sound of that person. That person is you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed your birds responding to your voice specifically or staying closer to you than to other people who come into your yard? I read every single one. I will see you in the next one.